Good morning. Welcome to the Knit Shift episode 39. My name is Laura. This is Gracie. And I think I just said this is episode 39. We're happy to see you today. So welcome. Show notes for this episode can be found at theknitshift.com. This podcast is available on iTunes or YouTube if you do a search for The Knit Shift. I'm on Ravelry as Yarnstormer, and I'm on Instagram as Laura Mahalski. And just please friend me on either of those social media platforms. I'd love to see you. And we have a group for the podcast over on Ravelry. If you, again, just search for The Knit Shift, you will find us. If you're new here, I'm a journalist in Virginia. I work evenings, hence the name The Night Shift. And this is a little place for me to talk about knitting, yarn, and some of the things I like to do. And of course, there's always Gracie, my dog. So thank you for spending some of your time with me. I really appreciate it. So what do I have for you today? We are going to draw a prize. Well, I already drew the prize. Drew the winner of a knit-along in the Ravelry group for holiday sock knitting. And I'm going to announce a new knit-along. I'm not a royal we. I am going to recap my 2015 in knitting, and I'm going to share a few of my goals for the coming year with you. So let's get to it. First things first, let us start with the drawing for the holiday sock knit-along. In mid-November, I started a hashtag called TKS Sock KAL for the Knit Shift Sock Knit-Along. And a lot of people participated on Instagram. Mainly the focus was the Ravelry group where people could share photos of their progress and their finished socks. I was not able to finish the knit-along. If you watched episode 38, I talked about losing my Christmas socks. I think somewhere in Germantown, Maryland is where I lost them on a road trip. I think they fell out of the car. So I'm over it. I've moved on. It's been a couple weeks now. I'm still sad I lost them, but to be honest, they were not working up at the gauge I had hoped for. They were just a little loose, and I could totally see them wearing out too soon because I did not knit them at a tight enough gauge. So anyway, I did not finish my socks, but many of you did, and there were lots of really, really great socks in there. And I already drew a number in the random generator, and I'll pull it up on my phone to show you. We had 36 posts, and if you exclude my first post, I put in numbers 2 through 36, and you will see the winner is number 11, and that is KHG Knits, who is Katie, who is actually coincidentally very local to me here in Southeast Virginia. So congratulations, Katie. Post number 11 had a beautiful pair of cream-colored, natural-colored socks that she made for her husband for Christmas. So they're really, really nice. I think they were ribbed, but I can't remember exactly. Maybe some baby cables on them, but they were lovely. So congratulations, Katie. You will be receiving a yarn holder courtesy of my dad. He decided to make them. He had heard about them, I guess, and from my mom or me, and decided to use some wood in their yard. And he cut down some trees and decided to make them, and it's lacquered and has a dial rod. And so this will be coming to you in the mail. Just send me a message on Ravelry with your address. And I have a few other odds and ends, some soap to send you, because I had bought some soap at Colonial Williamsburg, but since you're local, I feel like I'll save those for someone who doesn't live as close to Williamsburg as we do, so I'll send you some other soap. So just send me a message on Ravelry and I will get this to you very soon. So congratulations again. Our next knit-along, on to the next one, I guess. Our next knit-along will start February 1st. I was having a conversation with some of my local knitting friends, and we decided all to knit a shawl called Antarctic, which is a single skein sock. It calls for a single skein of sock yarn, and it's a paid-for pattern by Janino Kalios, and I think it's about $6.50. It's a beautiful asymmetrical, pretty simple asymmetrical shawl. So if you haven't knit a shawl before and you have a really pretty skein of sock yarn in your stash that you just don't know if you want to make it into socks, this would be the perfect kind of project for it. So we'll start that February 1st. I don't know, maybe it'll go for 2 months. We'll see how it progresses. So I hope you will play along. I'll have a thread going in Ravelry and probably come up with a hashtag. Maybe this time it'll be hashtag TKSKAL for the knit shift knit along, just a more generic one. So let's do that, hashtag TKSKAL. So I hope you'll play along. I haven't chosen my yarn yet. Actually, no. I think I'm going to use a skein of Miss Babs sock yarn that I bought at SAF in North Carolina. She had a SAF exclusive colorway. It was beautiful fall colors, and I think I will probably use that. But ask me again in a week and I might change my mind. We'll see. So stay tuned for that in the Ravelry group. And that brings us on to actual my knitting content. So I have a work in progress that is halfway finished, and this is a pair of socks that I started mid-December, I think. And here you go. This is a sock for my grandma. My grandma is 93 years old, lives in Pittsburgh, and there's a reason this is for her. So last month, my mom was visiting my grandma. My grandma lives in Pittsburgh. My parents are in Ohio, so my parents go in to see family in Pittsburgh occasionally. Pittsburgh is where I'm from, but I'm going on a tangent. So my mom was visiting my grandma at her apartment in the Pittsburgh area, and we FaceTimed, and my grandma made it a point to wear the socks that I knit her last summer. For around the time of her birthday, which is July, when she turned 93. And she loves them, and she wanted to wear them because she knew she'd be FaceTiming me, and she had my mom move the camera down to her feet so that I could see the socks on her ankles. Like I wouldn't have believed that she was wearing them. She had to show me. It was the sweetest thing. My grandma she's just wonderful. It's like a cliche, but she's just the sweetest, kindest person in the world. She never has a bad word to say about anyone, and I love her dearly. And the fact that I still have my grandma, and she's almost to she's halfway between 93 and 94. I'm very fortunate. I know I'm very fortunate. So I really want to make her another pair of socks before winter is over. So I had started this sock, and I was in the car when I FaceTimed, and I was the passenger, and my boyfriend Josh was the driver, and I said, well, that decides it. This sock, which was only this big, this is for Mimi. So I decided to make them for her, and this sock flew. It really did. This yarn is Knit Picks Felici in the Baker Street colorway, and you can see it's a couple shades it's like a cream, and then 2 shades of gray, and a taupe pale blue, kind of a lovely icy blue, and a really nice kind of a dark cornflower blue, kind of a gray blue, really. The light is blowing it out a little bit, and then back to cream. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stripes, and it's really, really soft. If you've never knit with Knit Picks Felici, it's wonderfully soft. I highly recommend it. I knit a pair of socks out of Felici before, but I knit them on a size 2, and they became really baggy. This is a thinner sock yarn. For me, I needed to go down a few needle sizes, so I knit this on a size 0, which is a 2 millimeter, and I kind of use my standard sock recipe. I use Judy's Magic Cast On for about 32 stitches, 16 and 16. I increased every round for 5 rounds, and then I slowed it down and increased every 3rd round to kind of give it a nice cupped toe. I believe I knit this on 68 stitches, and I knit up the leg, and I did a fish lips kiss heel. Just like last week, I have clothes in the dryer while I'm recording, sorry. I did a fish lips kiss heel, which I'll come back to in a second, and then I knit up the leg. So to preserve the stripe sequence, I normally have never cared too much about it one way or the other, but it's very easy when you knit a fish lips kiss heel to preserve the stripe sequence. You can see that, gray, blue, blue, white, gray, 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 blue, blue, white. So all the stripes are in order. And to do that with a Fish Lips Kiss heel, as you begin the heel, just take the yarn from the other end of the ball and knit the heel. And when you're done with the heel, switch back to, the yarn you were using to knit the foot. And then the front of the sock has the preserved stripe sequence. So easy peasy. And as it worked out, this heel, half of the heel used this gray and another half used the white almost perfectly. It's kind of uncanny actually, so kind of a neat way that worked out. So I've actually cast on the second sock, and I am probably not quite half my way up the foot. So I would love to finish these before a self-imposed deadline that's 2 weeks away when I'm going away for the weekend. So I think I can do it. I'd love to finish them and wash them and get them in the mail before Martin Luther King that weekend. So when I'm out traveling. So we'll see. Stay tuned. Josh and I saw Star Wars again Monday night. We saw it in IMAX, which I highly recommend. And I knit on this. I will say the one downside to Felice is it is a little bit splitty, and it does not make for the best knitting in the dark. And I consider myself someone who is pretty good at knitting in the dark and not making mistakes, but this one it's very easy to split if you're not careful. So I knit probably an inch or two of this, but mostly I watched the movie and I enjoyed it. Just the whole IMAX experience and the 3D glasses. So that is my only work in progress to show you. I showed you last week a pie shawl that I was knitting, and along between that and I have a sock yarn blanket that has been in progress for like 3 years. I plan on showing you guys those projects probably once a month or every 6 weeks, somewhere along those lines, just because progress is pretty slow on those, especially when it comes to the pie shawl where it's just a circle that keeps getting bigger. But the sock yarn blanket, I will have more progress to show regularly, I hope. So stay tuned for that. This brings me to... So let's look back at my 2015 year in knitting. I compiled a list of my projects. I had 26 items, which was 2 less than the year before. No big deal. I'm not trying to increase my output every year, and you reach the point where that's just not really a tenable thing. So, but I'm really happy with what I made. I made 10 pairs of socks, 6 shawls or cowls. Really, it was 5 shawls, 1 cowl. 6 pieces of neckwear accessories. 6 neckwear accessories. 2 hats, 2 pairs of mitts or mittens, 2 baby sweaters, 2 baby vests, 1 baby blanket, and 1 adult sweater. And 26 items total. So my sock output was not as prolific as years past. There have been times when I've knit more than 20 pairs of socks in a year, but early on in 2015, I was all about the shawls. I knit so many of them really early, so I think that's where my sock knitting time disappeared to. So I'm very pleased with it overall. I have some goals for the coming year. Only one hard and fast goal that I really want to stick to. The others are just aspirational things. I stashed a lot in 2015. Part of it was because I started the podcast and I got really excited about stuff. And, I was lucky enough to go to Maryland Sheep and Wool, and I got to go to SAF in North Carolina. So both of those were big stashing experiences. But when I look at my stash, I feel really inspired and really excited about it. And I feel like I have enough. Like I'm satiated, in a way. I feel like what I have, none of it is stuff that I'm meh on, and because I've gone through my stash and I've gotten rid of stuff that I was not in love with anymore. So that's not the case at all. And maybe that will change in the coming year. I don't know. But my big goal for this year is to use up more than I buy, so that I have a net loss in my stash at the end of the year. Now, how do I plan to do that? Well, I will count the yardage of things that I finish in 2016. So when I finish these socks for my grandma, I will weigh the yarn balls and keep an estimate of how much yarn I used. And, whether everything I have, I started in 2015. So I'm not so stringent that if I started in 2015, it doesn't count. No, anything I finish this year, no matter when I started it, will count. So I'm going to really try and stash mindfully, and we'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll provide, I don't know if you want an update on that, but I'll see if I can keep good progress and maybe be held accountable for my actions. So stay tuned. I'm very hopeful I'll go to Maryland Sheep and Wool again, and I'm very hopeful I'll go to SAF again. Oh, and I have to make a note to mention something when we're done talking about this. Just one second. Okay. So, other goals. I bought spindles last year, a spindle, and I received a spindle as a gift from my mom. I really do want to get back to trying more spindle spinning, but I also aspire to start looking at just researching wheels and learning more about them and maybe getting to try a wheel because I've never spun on a wheel, but I really, really would like to spin on a wheel. I think it would be faster than a spindle, and it's something I'm really interested in, but I'm not totally sure that spindle spinning is for me. I'm going to keep at it, but I don't see any reason to do something I'm not happy with. But I'm not going to give up, so I'm going to keep trying and really assess how I feel about spindle spinning and possibly research the idea of a wheel. There is a store, probably the premier spinning wheel retailer in Frankfort, Kentucky called the Woolery, and it's about 2.5 hours from where my parents live in Ohio, and I'm giving serious thought to, on one of my trips to Ohio, whenever that might be, I have none scheduled, taking a day, and Mom, if you're watching, I would want you to come with me, obviously, and go down there and try some wheels out and maybe order one if I'm far enough along in the process that I feel comfortable with such a thing. So we'll see. That's very aspirational. That's really pie in the sky. So if you're a spinner and you're my friend, and I know some of you who are watching this are, like Kate from the Stitch Addiction podcast, I will welcome your advice. So anyone who spins, well, I welcome your advice on what to look for. I know that wheel buying is a very personal thing, so I realize what works for you, what might not work for me, etc., but I welcome your advice. So, but back to knitting. One other goal I have is to knit some things for people who I've never knit for before. I have made some friends in the past few years that I've never knit for, and it might even be someone who has said to me in the past, like, they might have said stuff like, oh, I'd love to commission something from you, or, oh, can I put a request in? And in the past, if I didn't know them well, that might kind of annoy me, to be honest, because, everyone has different knitting priorities and amounts of time to knit depending on your life. And I am someone who likes to knit for gifts, and I like to knit for myself, and I like to knit for people I know who are having babies, but I don't often, I don't have the time at all to take commission knitting. And I'm going down a tangent here, of course, which I'm prone to do, but most people who aren't knitters don't know the true value of handwork, of a handmade item like a pair of socks. Which, let's face it, is probably the only thing I would make for people, because I could probably knit a pair of socks in my sleep. But no one wants to pay me what they're actually worth. The yarn alone is $25, and if you count 20 hours of work at $10 an hour, you're looking at $240 for a pair of socks. No one wants to pay that. And I wouldn't charge someone close to me that. So it comes back to the point of, I don't knit for money, and I don't take commission requests. And more power to you if you do. If you like to do that and want to do that, I'm not judging you, but it's just not for me. So I have some friendships that I would like to, make something for someone as a gift because I really like them and I care about them. And, or I have a friend going through a difficult time, whatever the reason, knitting is kind of my way to show that I'm thinking of someone. So I'd like to do a little bit more of that. No hard numbers, but I have a few people in mind. And I would like to knit myself another sweater. I don't know how feasible that is. I have the yarn in my stash for 3 or 4 sweaters. I'm not buying any more sweater quantities. Like, my hand to God, I'm not buying any more sweater quantities this year. So I would like to knit another one. But we'll see how feasible that is, because I tend to start them and get beyond the armpits, on a raglan style, and then I put it aside and I forget about it, and then I finish the sweater 4 months later in 2 weeks. So, okay. And yeah, I think that's it for my knitting goals. So stash less than I knit for people I care about, knit for people who I might not have knit for before, explore the idea of a spinning wheel, and knit myself a sweater. I think some of them are reasonable, some of them are less attainable. We'll see. And so the thing I just made a note about that I wanted to tell you about, I will be at the Pittsburgh Knit and Crochet Festival in the first weekend of March. My mom and I are kind of meeting in the middle, and we will be staying there, and we're each taking a class on Saturday morning. I want to say she's taking a bead knitting class, but I'm taking a learn to dye your own yarn class. So if you're in Pittsburgh or you're nearby, I hope you'll think about going. I've never been. My mom went last year and said it was really nice. So I'm excited to check it out. It's about a 7.5 hour drive for me. So I'm really excited. I'll get to see my grandma. And if you're going to be there, or if you're planning on being there, let me know. I'll probably start a thread in the group about it. And maybe I can arrange some kind of meetup on Saturday afternoon or something. So yeah, it's the first weekend in March. I want to say it's like March 3rd through the 5th or something along those lines. I don't know, but it's the first full weekend in March. That's the bottom line. So, and one other scheduling note, I am traveling 2 weeks from now. I'll be out of town for Martin Luther King weekend. I'm going away for the weekend with some knitting friends to just knit and hang out in Pennsylvania. Near Philadelphia, so I may or may not record in 2 weeks. We'll see. Depends. I just don't know how work will be and all that. So I think that's everything from me today. If you have any questions about anything I talked about, let me know. There will be show notes, of course. And if you have any thoughts on the podcast, send them my way. I always love to hear that kind of stuff, good or bad. So thank you for watching. Thank you for spending a little bit of your day with me, and I'll see you soon. Bye.